ahead and read
This
that
one
one
is
if you would.
Patience. And again, another sonnet in the Italian form. So we have the initial octave, the initial 8 lines that sets up the situation, and then the following 6 lines that sort of resolves or comments on the situation. That's a structure that Hopkins uses a lot. It's a very fruitful structure. So, patience. Patience, hard thing. The hard thing but to pray, but bid for patience is. Patience who asks, wants war, wants wounds, weary his times, his tasks, to do without, take tosses, and obey. Rare patience roots in these, and, these away, nowhere. Natural heart's ivy, patience masks our ruins of wrecked past purpose. There she basks, purple eyes and seas of liquid leaves all day. We hear our hearts grate on themselves, it kills to bruise them dearer. Yet the rebellious wills of us, we do bid God bend to him even so. And where is he who more and more distills delicious kindness? He is patient. Patience fills his crisp combs, and that comes those ways we know.
So in this one, the words he's using are pretty normal, but it's more the syntax and kind of the way that he uses the words that can be tricky.
Yeah, this is one of his more elliptical poems, I think.
Right.
He hasn't invented anything, but he's leaving out an awful lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even that first sentence, well, patience, hard thing. He's leaving out the verse. Patience is a hard thing. The hard thing is but to pray.
Yeah.
And I think
the hard thing but to pray, but bid for. And then the second, he even leaves out the to, but to pray, but bid for.
Yeah, and
patience is.
Reverses it. This is one of his more difficult syntax lines. And bid for means to ask for. It's right. The hard thing is to pray, but to ask for is hard to pray. It's hard to ask for patience, but we can ask for patience.
Right. And the way I read it is that even just to pray and ask for patience is hard.
Yeah.
But you can also say that's what patience is, in a way.
And you can also say that that it may be hard, but you can ask for patience to do the praying.
Okay.
So it's interesting because he has left out all these verbs. It has rendered the lines in some senses ambiguous, in the sense that we can read it multiple ways, but it's not infinitely ambiguous. Whatever way we're framing it,
it's the relation that's ambiguous.
Yeah, exactly. So clearly he's giving us the opportunity to kind of meditate on these interconnections between patience and prayer and how hard it is. Is it simply a one-way thing? It's hard to pray, ask for patience. Right. Well, it's a little more complicated than that, maybe. Maybe we need to pray for patience to ask for help in prayer.
Right. And patience who asks, that inversion there, because the most obvious meaning you could say is the person who asks for patience. But patience who asks, again, makes it ambiguous, as if, is it patience asking, that kind of thing. Wants war, wants wounds. So, and then you talk about the meaning of want in that annotation there as well.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting poem in the way that he's making these fairly ordinary words do double or triple duty, because wants means desires, and it also means, in a slightly less common usage today, lacks. We see that in the translation of the Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want, there's nothing I shall lack. So it's both of those meanings are working here. So patience is desiring, the one who's asking for patience desires war and wounds. He wants something exciting to happen. He doesn't want to just deal with his weary times, his tasks to do without, tosses and obey. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to have war and wounds that are more exciting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it lacks. Patience doesn't have war, doesn't have wounds. It is his task to be taking tosses and obeying. Yeah. So it's that simultaneous, I want these things, I don't have them, and they're both part of the meaning of what it is to try to learn to be patient.
Yeah. Interesting. I had another thought, and I don't know if you can really interpret it this way, but another thought that I had is that people who are asking for growth in patience may even ask God for opportunities to grow in patience, which would mean, war and wounds and those things that would be difficult. But really, we might want those. We may often people of a certain disposition might ask for these heroic ways of growing, and actually what they're supposed to do is just deal with the humble moment in which they live.
And I think that is very much in line with what Hopkins is saying here. And remember, he had a very boring life in many respects.
Yeah.
His he might have wanted war and wanted wounds, but he had to grade examination papers.
Right.
And that was something he was grappling with. And then he says rare patience, and here again we have a double meaning that I gloss here. Rare, as I say, means infrequent and exceptional. So it's hard to do this, he's saying, but rare also means especially valuable and precious. Right. Both of those things are simultaneously being evoked when he says rare patience, roots in these ordinary things, and these away nowhere. And this is one of his, again, very condensed elliptical lines, which I gloss to be, if these conditions, the wearying circumstances that we've seen, if these conditions are absent, then true patience cannot grow here. These away, nowhere. We can't be patient unless we have things to be patient about, is what he's getting at.
And now here's the first real imagery we get in the poem. Natural heart's ivy, patience masks are ruins of wrecked past purpose. So we can see how a ruined building might look nicer, covered in ivy.
Yeah. And
there she basks, purple eyes and seas of liquid leaves all day.
And I didn't understand that line until I had spent time in Oxford, where I have seen that exact thing. Perhaps even the descendants of the ivy that Hopkins saw as he walked in Oxford as a student. Because ivy, English ivy, when it grows over a building, it can be tremendous. It grows over an entire wall. It makes a sea of liquid leaves. So if the wind rustles through it, it really does look like a rippling green sea. And the berries that it makes are purple. There are these round berries. So that is actually a very vividly accurate description of English ivy covering a ruined wall. Purple eyes and seas of liquid leaves. It is astonishingly strange, but it's beautifully accurate. That's what it looks like. And it does cover over these ruins.
Yeah, and wrecked past purpose, specifically talking about one's plans or expectations for one's life, really.
Yeah. Or past failures, anything that you wish were different and it's not. Patience just grows over it, covers it over. Those things are still there. And again, we have Hopkins' spiritual realism. The ruins are still there. They haven't gone away, but patience is covering them over. And giving a sort of a life to it that it didn't have before.
Yeah. We hear our hearts grate on themselves. It kills to bruise them dearer. What does it mean to bruise something dearer?
Dearer would mean more intimately, like the phrase near and dear.
Yeah, okay.
So we have this sense that he is moving forward, okay, I'm attempting to be patient. My heart is grating on itself. It's difficult to do this. We can almost hear the nails on chalkboard of I'm trying to be patient. I'm trying to be obedient. And so I'm trying, Lord, and I have to do it even more. So this sense of I'm being asked to do something even harder. I don't want to be more patient. I don't want to accept more than I already am doing. It kills to bruise them dearer. And then in that next line, we have a really, I think, very mature spiritual insight here, that it feels so painful, it kills. Yet the rebellious wills of us, we do bid God bend to him even so. And I gloss this by rearranging the syntax. Nevertheless, we do ask God to bend, that is, to subdue our rebellious wills to him, even though it hurts.
Why do you think he says of us instead of our? Is that just for rhythm, or is there anything else going on there?
I think for once, I think Hopkins is deliberately inviting the reader into the poem with him. He doesn't do it very often, but I think he's doing it here. I think he's inviting the reader to step in with him and say, we are all in this together. We are trying to do this. You, reader, and I,
Right.
poet, same problem.
But why does he say of us instead of our rebellious wills? It's just kind of an unusual.
Well, I think because the way he does it, say, yet the rebellious wills of us, puts such an emphasis on rebellious wills that it highlights that. If we said, yet our rebellious wills, it would move rebellious wills slightly out of the prime place. He really wants to call our attention to rebellious wills. We've got rebellious wills. They're ours. But these, we do ask God to bend these wills to him, even so.
And where is he who more and more distills delicious kindness? He is patient. Patience fills his crisp combs, and that comes those ways we know. Interesting that he uses where. Where is he? And the answer is he is patient. So we're not talking about a place exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's almost shifting time and space in there. And I think that's almost part of the point. Where is he? Well, we see him in anyone who's being patient. It's not a place, it's a condition.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Crisp combs, honeycombs, you annotate that. So
we get that delicious kindness, that immediately gets, again, an also scriptural image, this idea of the sweetness of honey. We've had quite a tough poem, our hearts grating in ourselves, ruins of wrecked past purpose. But he's saying this is not just all about bending our wills and suffering and bowing down. No, we do this. And what do we get? We get delicious kindness. We get the sweetness of honey. There's a sweetness at the end of it. And that lovely, gentle closing phrase. And that comes, those ways we know. We know how to do this. This is not rocket science. We know.
Yes, it does feel, that last line that comes, those ways we know, it feels a little bit like an admonition of someone who is looking any other way to grow patience than actually having to go through the grind of it. Because that's often the case. We often know what the best way is, but we're just looking for a shortcut.
Yeah, and again, that's Hopkins' utter down-to-earthness, his spiritual realism and honesty. Yeah, I know how to be patient. I just don't want to. I don't want to do it. But it comes those ways we know. We know them.
Yeah.
Just do them. Patience, hard thing. Indeed.
Yeah, exactly.